The last thing I want to talk about is this identity column here. It's such an important function that I want to go over this with you. The identity column is as you remember, it's in the primary column, usually a primary key, right? It auto-generates that number for you. And usually we have multiple tables, like how when you have a foreign key and then the primary key, right? So the foreign keys and that child table needs to know the previous tables or the parent table's last ID in order to update its own table. Okay, so once you insert that into the parent table, it generates that ID number. You don't know what that is. So how do you find out, right? You could do another statement and then find the last statements, the last record, and grab that from there, which is completely fine. Or you could just use one of these functions, and this will give you that last ID number right away, and insert that directly into your child table. Okay, so we have three options here. You have the scope identity function, the ident_current, and you have the at identity. Three options, and then they are depending on the scope and also on the session where they're declared. Okay, so all of these return the last identity or that last ID value from the last insert statement in any table. Okay. Okay, so the scope here, the word scope here means it's only you can only insert or access within that current session. Okay. And scope means that batch. The two @ symbol here is anytime you see the two @ symbols, it's usually global. Okay, it's a global variable. That can be in the current session only and in any scope. Okay, that means like the scope here usually much more applied to like a trigger or another function or subroutine. Okay, so you kind of like hoist that out of the local variable or local function, and then it access in the global space. And the ident not table ident current. Sorry, returns the it's just table dependent. It doesn't matter what session you are in, what scope. It doesn't really matter. As long as you have the table, you can get that last insertion ID. Okay? So, in here, okay, so I'm going to go into the script here and do some really simple table creation really quick. Okay, so we're going to create a table inside the AP. Well, that's fine. Create a table. I'm just going to call it the parent table, or just call parent. And it takes only just two parameters, or one is fine too, but two. The ID, it's going to be int type, and then the maybe I don't know, age, also int type. Very simple table. Okay, this is not even watching. You have to make this the identity. I'm sorry. Identity column. You can also make this as a primary key. Okay, and the n will be just int. So you create that table. And then I'm going to insert some data into that table, into the parent. Values will be, the first is ignore because it's a primary key. The age is also ignored. So I don't have to put in any data here. You could do this. If this is you know what? Let me do this. Let me take that primary key out. Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, So since this is going to be auto-generated, right? This one here is nullable. I didn't say not null. If you say not null, it doesn't work. But I mean, you can take null values. So just to test your data, you could just say parent is default values. Okay? If you do that, it will just insert null into that age column. So you don't have to put any data there, I'm saying. So if you run this statement here, and to generate a table parent, if you run this second statement, okay, you see that it had one row affected, and if you select from that table, the parent table, you'll see that it has null for the age. I didn't put any value, which is okay. This will show you that the identity is 1. Okay, how do you get that last insertion number? So if I run this again, the identity of that row should be 2 now, right? Okay, this to show that if I select that, it's now 2. Okay, let's just say that you do a lot of insertions like this. I do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. From this point, it's like I want to get that last number out of that table, and how do you get that, right? So that's when you do that that scope identity, or the identity, or the current table name. Okay, so you could declare a variable name if you want. If you don't just want to print it out, you can just say, select scope identity will return that as well. So I can say declare ID of int type, that's the same data type, equal to select, and then the scope identity. It's a function, you put a paren there. Okay? Yeah, that's what it is. So select identity here, and then that should return a data back. I guess you want to wrap that with the paren here. It's a statement. Okay, so I haven't done anything. I didn't do any insertion yet. The last insertion was like a couple seconds ago. I don't know what the last number is. And if I run this single statement here, it's going to return to me the last number that I inserted into the ID field, which I didn't print it out. So I can do like print ID. So I know what that is. Let's try again. Okay, so return that the last identity insert was at number 7. Okay, if I click on the select parent table, you see that the last it is in fact a 7. Okay, so if I do insertion here, just do it a couple times. Okay, I don't know what the number is. If I do again from that scope, I'll get, which is 15 now. Okay, so you get that last number. I mean, what for? Okay, well, maybe you have a second table. So here, you have a second table. I'm going to go up here and create a table called the child table. And also take the ID child ID of int. This time I'm not going to make this as a int int, and then let's see, age, 2 fields also, but the child will be this regular int. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this identity here to the int field for that child. So really, this is it's like a foreign key, right? So when I get that, when I make an insertion, I want to grab the last number set to the ID, and then insert into the child the values of the ID, whatever that is, and then maybe a number. It could be just, I could just ignore that number, it's fine. No, let's just put a number here. Okay, just to make it work. And then I can do a print.id, and I will do a select from the child table. Okay. So I'll insert into the parent. The last number should be in 18, I guess, if I remember that correctly, right? 17 or 15 was the last one, so is it? I don't remember. And then I'm going to get that from the insertion and add that value as the 15 value to the ID, and then 10, 12, and so on. Okay, so I'm going to go all the way to, well, make sure I create a child table first. Okay, so that added. And then now I'm going to go and insert that data. And then, so I insert, okay, to the parent table. The 16 was the last key. And then I insert into the child table with a key of 16 and the value of 12. Okay, so that's how you get the last number from the record. And this was actually a challenge to some database developers. How do you get that last value? Okay. You can also get that from, instead of the scope, I could use the add symbol identity. That works as well. But this one is not a function with that, so it's like it's a constant number. Let's also store the last number as well. So if I run this again, I should be getting the number 17. Okay, so let's run for the insert again, execute, and you'll see that I get 17 now. And the table is inside here. This child and the parent here. And then notice that also they only have to be on the same session here. If I move this over over here, then it wouldn't work. It will not recognize that. So let's just say if I just declare this variable, copy this, and put it over here into a different session. I'm not going to insert it. I'm just going to display the data. Okay. So if I go here, go back to the original one, run this insertion, insert. Okay. I can see that I can get the data from here. If I just run this statement here, I'll get the number of 18. But if I go over to the next session, you see that if I run this, I'll get a null. But it's not reachable over there. Same thing with the select identity here. If I put the select identity, I mean the scope identity, okay, it's also not reachable. So if I do this and select, as you can see, it's null. The only one that you can see it is from this one called indent identity current. The current identity, that was last inserted to whichever table you want to reference here, the table of parent. Okay, put it in the string format. And if I do this, even though I'm a different session, it will give me the, did I remove that already? Let's try again. Let's say I'm going to run this one more time. Insert. Back here and select ident current from the parent. Oh yeah, right. Good. So yeah, this has to be the AP. Right. So if that's the case, then yeah, you should get that right. 19. Thanks for catching that. Yep. So you can see that I can select that in any session as long as you know which table was last inserted. Okay. You have to know the table is table dependent, whereas the other two are doesn't care about which table you insert it. It could be a different table, doesn't matter. It's just the last identity.